Hey, going forwards, never call anything the Bloodline Project ever.
Yeah.
And I mean,
No, that's it. You could have went with ancestry.ca.
Oh yeah.
Hello and welcome. The Lore Boys here, back with part 2 of the Magic the Gathering story on Dominaria United. I am your host, Ethan Palmer. With me, as always, is James and Peter.
Yep. I was here last time on Dominaria United where they tried to kick me off the plane and I needed to get home because I'm a doctor.
But then we kind of decided we were better united.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for the 4D experience, this is Peter. The boys actually buried me with rocks, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You got out, which kind of sucked, but whatever.
Gotta do what you gotta do, man.
I guess, sure.
Yeah. We crushed Pete to death. He's not on the show anymore.
A rock dick asphyxiation.
I was gonna say, you can't crush me to death. You're not a fit woman.
Before we jump into the episode, though, Pete, why don't you tell us about our new patrons?
Shout out and a thank you to Ricky Godinez. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but welcome to the party. It only gets worse from here.
Yeah. True. It's only worse for the rest of this episode. No, that's not true. So where we left the story, this is a part 2, reminder. The Phyrexians had played their first hand on the plane of Dominaria during some peace talks after Karn and company had caught a Phyrexian disguised as a bird. Right. So where the episode ended was they'd found the bird. They brought the bird to these people who didn't believe that the Phyrexians were on Dominaria, showed them, we got a Phyrexian bird, and then like 12 people who were sitting at the state table turned into Phyrexians and were like, surprise, we're Phyrexians too.
Right. And they all had Phyrexian birds.
Yeah, they were all birds, and inside those, it's like the zipper suit. They like unzip the body, and it's just like a horrible monster on the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I remember that. How did everything start with Dominaria United? Like we led up to that. We followed the story of who again?
We followed the story of Karn,
right?
The silver golem who had been investigating them, knew that they were up to something, suspected that they were on Dominaria, and had tracked them down.
Broke through a wall.
Exactly, yeah. Found Shieldred.
They
didn't believe him. There were some people who did believe him. Sten, this one wizard, did believe him. Told him as much, and basically was like his first ally. And Ajani believed him as well. The Leonin.
Ajani saved him, right?
Ajani saved him where he was buried. Then Ajani took him to go talk to like the ruling class, essentially, who were negotiating some other peace talks. And
I remember Ajani having like a white and black sword or something, or he had like his weapon. Really cool.
He has a double bladed, like he has an axe. He's like a bow staff with like a crescent axe on either end of it.
Right.
I actually meant to share a picture. I shared a picture of all the characters except for Ajani with you guys, but I can pull up a picture of Ajani.
We do have an episode on Ajani too, if you guys go back and look, if you're interested in learning more.
Yeah, like Karn had been searching like the center of Dominaria and found that the Phyrexians had bbeen invading through like portals or something.
He'd been searching the caves of Koilos.
That's it.
Yeah. And no, they weren't here through portals, but Shieldred, the big Phyrexians, they can send their bodies across the plains, but all organic material is destroyed if you're not a planeswalker and you try and planeswalk. But because there's so much metal, they were able to rebuild themselves.
And that lady, whose name I forgot, is rebuilding Shieldred, right? She's helping with that. Yeah.
That lady
Karn came in with a bomb behind his back.
And crushed her skull as well, which was very cool.
Yeah. And then she collapsed the place on him, and they got away.
Yeah.
And then he went and hid the Silex, which he had, and didn't share its location with anyone because he's paranoid, because now he's kind of realized that, you know, all these people in the stateroom could be Phyrexian, so anyone could be a Phyrexian.
Right. And they're like, they got away from that one big hideout, and there was like some quote where they were saying like, oh, for every one hideout you find, we have like 10 others already like set up, and by the time you find us, we're already gonna It's too late. Give up.
Yeah.
Karn.
Yeah. I mean, the cut one head off the Hydra metaphor is going to extend throughout this episode for sure.
Okay.
So,
right.
so there's kerfuffle in the treaty room. Karn, Teferi, Joda, Jaya, and Sten all get together to discuss what happens next in this giant tower, essentially. During the scrap, Ajani had leapt out of a window to chase a Phyrexian, like a human who'd been turned Phyrexian, named Aaron Capashen, who was a complicated noble. He chased him across some balconies. Karn couldn't follow. Essentially, Karn was just like, "I'm too heavy as a 3-ton golem to use the balconies." Basically,
he's like, "You there? Do you land on your feet?" He's like, "Oh," and just whips him through a window, the Lion Man.
Exactly. So Ajani's on his own. Ajani leaves them. Now we have the 5: Karn, Teferi, Joda, Jaya, and Sten. In this tower. And in Argivium, I think it is called, which is like the capital of this part of the Teferi Isles, which were created after the time rifts happened. A continent was turned into was devastated and turned to a bunch of islands, mainly protected by Teferi. So they're here, and Karn manages to lock down the tower. He's got the security shutters that just all slam down, and he's got the building on lockdown. They're like, we've got a bird in here somewhere that we got to find.
Yeah, you got to keep the bird in the house. Don't let the bird out of the house.
Yeah. Exactly.
Close the chimneys.
Does everybody have their broom? It's like, yes, we've come prepared. Just like
is there a fish net and oven mitts on, ready to fight Phyrexians?
The tennis racket's the thing for bats, right?
Yeah, that's bats.
That's it.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, what was your family's solution? It was tennis rackets, and that wasn't even one member. It wasn't just one member of your family. There was more than one.
Yeah,
but it was multiple people from different families. Like my wife's family too was just oh, you just need a tennis racket.
Just tennis racket.
Yeah, it's back. You get a tennis racket. Yeah.
Well, their echolocation doesn't work on it because it doesn't bounce back at them, right?
Right. And if you're if you're trying to stop someone from running a racket, you bring a bat.
Bats are racket blind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're in this lockdown tower. This is the Amogus episode where they're they're looking for the monster that's kind of in the ventilation as they're in this lockdown building, and Karn's faced with a dilemma. So Karn has an immunity to glistening oil. You guys might remember from the last episode because Venser, another planeswalker, had sacrificed his planeswalker spark to save Karn.
Right.
And that has protected Karn. That other spark, that second spark within him, has protected Karn from glistening oil and from Phyrexian completion.
Right. And glistening oil, if you don't remember, is the stuff that turns you into a Phyrexian. It'll turn your flesh into metal. It's turns you robot person.
It'll make you rock hard, baby. So he's also inorganic, and it's typically organic material that gets corrupted. So he's kind of got double protection.
2 condoms.
Yeah. But Karn does realize Teferi told him after Teferi arrived on Dominaria that Tamiyo had been completed, right? So Karn's like, oh, planeswalkers can be completed.
Yeah.
Teferi and Jaya are planeswalkers. Joda and Sten are just wizards, not planeswalkers.
Okay.
But Karn realizes that this pseudo council that he has, these 5 whom he's trapped in this tower to find this bird, could be Phyrexians in disguise. There's no way to know, really, right? So everyone, especially Jaya, is really bugging him for the location of the Silex because they're like, "Hey, this is our best weapon in the fight against the Phyrexians. We should know where the Silex is in case something happens to you, right?" Karn refuses. He's like, "Nope, I can't trust any of you." He's very stubborn in a lot of ways, where he's like,
"Best
nope,
not to ask the paranoid guy a ton of questions about the thing he's hiding, right?"
I mean, you guys maybe remember from the last episode too. He cracked the hole in the wall, saw the tunnel, recognized instantly that it was Phyrexians, but then pretty much instantly said, "I'm the best person for this job. I'm the only person who can't be corrupted." and like I have to act now. So like I'm the only one that can fix this problem, and then that got him literally buried under a mountain of rubble while the Phyrexians got to work. Right. So
I compared it to James Franco, whatever many hours that guy
27 hours.
Yes, went out by himself and got stuck his arm in a rock.
Exactly. There is like a through line here of like Karn's arrogance constantly kind of being tested, where he's he refuses to let anybody else in on stuff because he thinks that he can just do a better job on his own.
Yeah, you guys could never chop your arm off with a pocket knife. I'm the only one qualified to do that and escape the canyon.
Yep.
Yeah. So after the chaos, or during the chaos, the bird had gotten loose. Karn is not letting anyone leave until they've found it and killed it, right? It's the first thing to do. Split the party to cover more ground, right? So Jaya and Joda opt to take the top levels. Karn and Teferi are going to take the middle levels, while Sten draws the short straw and has to go solo to the basement.
Oh, yeah. I like the idea of like spreading out to find a bird loose in the house, where it's just like, okay, you two, you go upstairs and bonk yourself into the window a bunch of times to see if the bird is there. Yeah. You check the inside of the chimney. I'll go to the basement where I'm sure a fucking bird is, right?
Okay.
Meanwhile, any of them could be a bird.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Let's see. Me and Teferi will go to the movie theater. Joda, Jaya, you guys go to the cotton candy room. Sten, you go to the aviary, okay? So we follow Karn and Teferi. They end up finding a slime trail, which had squeezed through a door to a room labeled storage, waterworks. Concerning. They opt not to call for backup already, since they haven't found the creature yet. They just found slime. They also don't think that it's worth. They just don't think that it's worth reporting slime. It's just some slime, guys.
Do they do the cocaine test, like the knife, and then they rub it on their gums? It's like, that's glistening oil. It's like in bricks, like wrapped in saran wrap.
Yeah, these things are gross. I didn't know they left like snail trails where they went.
It is like unclear if that is glistening oil or if it's just like a general slime. I mean, you'll remember they're like very much a hybrid of mechanical parts, and then just like viscera and gore, and it's like here's a calculator with a pustule on it.
Maybe we're like
a kidney, like whatever.
The metal runs up against the flesh. There's like some kind of like discharge too, or you're gross things. These Phyrexians, man. Yeah,
they've all got tetanus for sure.
I was thinking today about someone got a tetanus shot last night at the dog park because they cut their hand on metal. When was the last time you guys got a tetanus shot? I have not.
2015. We were just talking about this at a mutual friend's place, but I stepped on a nail. So
shit.
I got a nail through my hand when I was young, and then got one. It 20 years easy because I got a nail like straight through my hand.
You're not supposed to get them unless you like specifically like cut yourself on something like dirty.
Okay.
Which you have.
Probably
tetanus, so you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If I start leaving snail trails around my apartment, then I'll go.
Well, no. Okay.
Lockjaw on a snail trail. You're like, I think Jamie's unwell.
Yeah, this second round of COVID really sucks. Lockjaw on a snail trail.
That's good. So the room appears. This waterworks room appears empty, but a lead's a lead, and they start searching. Pretty derelict, old, dusty, unused copper pipes strewn on the shelves, except Karn finds some blood dripping from the underside of a shelf. On closer inspection, it seems as though some pipes are bleeding, which is, gotta call a plumber for that.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta run your sink for like 30 seconds before drinking so all the blood can come out of the pipes before the water.
As the author of the story put it, a throbbing chunk of meat had attached itself, barnacle-like, to the copper. It released a gout of acid, dissolving the metal, and then it regurgitated a metallic barb from its side.
Okay.
So Karn, not to be too phased, reaches out, pops the pustule between his fingers. As he does so, Teferi calls him over, gesturing for silence. There, they overhear Jaya and Joda speaking on a distant floor, far above them, questioning Karn's leadership.
Well, Karn echoing through the pipes?
Exactly, through the pipes, through the ventilation, through something.
Okay.
Yeah. You're gonna keep blood in your pipes, or else you're gonna
exactly reduce the echo. Yeah. That's why we keep blood in all our podcast pipes, so we don't get echo on the mic.
Yep. Yep.
Teferi realizes, however, that if they can hear distant floors, the Phyrexians could be using the pipes to travel between those floors too. If there's like sound echoing, there's space which this thing could be traveling through. It had squeezed between the seam of a door essentially already. So
Steve Jobs drops the initial iPod into a fish tank and sees air bubbles. Phyrexians can get into this. Send it back.
Yeah, you need to spray it with those plastic beads to keep them.
So they find some black oil on the corner of a vent and see that part of the metal of the vent had been transformed into an eyeball ringed with teeth, with smaller eyeballs next to it blinking up at them. So this thing is also like corrupting the metal of the tower, like as it goes. Essentially, the glistening oil that it seems to be leaving behind seems to be creating sort of these pseudo Phyrexians all over the place. Teferi tells Karn that he trusts Karn's leadership, even if the others don't, because that's what they overheard. It was Jaya and Joda basically saying like Karn should tell us where the Silex is.
That's what I would say if I was next to a 500-pound golem who was pretty pissed off too. Yeah.
Right.
I trust him.
We're good though, right? We're fine.
Karn decides not to trust Teferi with the location of the Silex, but instead he gives him a false location. So he says it's in Timbuktu or whatever.
Right.
When it's not
a fake place.
Exactly.
No.
It's in Fort Knox, baby. So they hear some skittering of metal on metal in some pipes, and Karn does some quick mental math triangulation, realizes that they need to go downstairs to the second floor. How he does that, I'm not entirely sure. But
he's a metal golem, whatever. He's got math powers too.
He's a metal math golem with the power of math. Don't do math, kids.
He's got his math core like in his chest that keeps him alive.
Every now and then he's got to write down like 2 + 2 in crayon on his chest to keep stuff going. Got a little he's just like a little post-it note thing. He's just like he's got to like do a little equation, then tear the post-it note off.
Somebody looks at it like 5 + 5. He's like, no, it's from my perspective.
Yeah.
2 + 2 = core.
Yeah, because he does write the number. He does write the numbers like digital, right? So he does.
Exactly.
So they're descending the stairs, heading down to the second floor where they realize the creature is. But as they are descending, they hear a shout echoing down from above. They realize Joda is in trouble. They sprint upstairs in time to see Joda flinging the Phyrexian off of himself. Here's a quote. Karn located Joda and Jaya on the 4th floor in a small office located off the main corridor. Joda flung the squid-like Phyrexian off of him, and it splatted into a wall. Jaya pressed her hands together and blasted it with white-hot flame, and the creature split into halves, avoiding the fire. Each half sprouted multiple multi-jointed legs from its gory sides. Hungry mouths bloomed along its carapace, ringed in tiny razor-sharp teeth. Jaya parted her hands, dividing her flame to pursue each half. The creature split again, this time into 4 small chittering beasts with dozens of legs growing from central gobs of flesh, twined around with cables. The creature scattered, each going in a different direction. So this is kind of what I was saying before. Like we have a trouble with tribbles. Is that the Star Trek episode where it's just like multiplying constantly?
With the stuffed animal thing?
Yeah, exactly.
The fluff? Yeah.
So Karn stomps one, Jaya roasts another of these 4, which have split, but ultimately 2 of them do escape, and they just squeeze into the cracks in like the stone tile of the floor, which is like hard to stop them at that rate, right? So Stan and Teferi arrive behind Karn, and they realize that if the creature can split like that, there's no telling how many there are even in the building right now. If they have to go up, like Karn had just heard one downstairs and was like, we got to go downstairs. And then there was one attacking Joda upstairs. So it's like, we don't know how many there are. We don't know where they are. We're surrounded. They're among us.
Teferi gets back inside. He's like, it made like a banana and split. And everybody just like stares at him. He's like, sorry, I've been sitting on that one for hours.
It was a pretty slick one. Are you sure you're not infected with glistening oil? So they grab some goo from the piece that Karn had stomped. They grab some like Phyrexian, I guess, Phyrexian flesh. And Joda and Karn together create some compasses which can track the creature. So it's like a little gob of Phyrexian goo in the center on your little like needle in a cork bobbing, essentially.
Yeah, I just rub it against a magnet and put it in a glass of water. You're like, it's a neat science experiment. It just points towards Phyrexians.
Yeah, by how gross everything's been up to this point, I thought a compass might actually just be cum and piss, but
a compass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Karn's like, well, I can't do it. You guys need to do it for me.
It's the Phyrexian compass. They managed to work together, and they kind of create this like pseudo compass that should be able to track it in theory. We'll find out in a little bit that it has some flaws, but Karn doesn't stop there though. He creates a small scrying disc, and like essentially a little pocket mirror which he can use to spy on people and things, which surprisingly like doesn't previously exist in this world. Like it's like scrying is already not a thing, I guess, but Karn like invents it, and it's like he keeps it hidden from like Jaya in that moment for a reason which I couldn't really figure out why ultimately either. He would keep the scrying thing hidden from people, but it's like just this simple little disc. While he does that though, he thinks of Ajani, wishing that the Leonin was like here with them. He's like, oh boy, while I'm working on my stuff, and he literally like goes into a corner and like turns his back to everyone and just like works on his little pocket calculator.
I know he's a good guy, but like if I was part of this squad, I wouldn't fucking trust him either.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not telling anyone anything. He's just like it's like he's keeping secrets from everybody. He's hiding this thing he's making out of monster parts.
Yeah,
it's just like no, don't worry about it.
So this he didn't make from the Phyrexian parts. It was just the compass, the scrying thing. He could just like do, I guess.
Okay. Yeah,
but he thinks of Ajani, and while he does that, Ajani like materializes on the scrying disc. He sees an image of Ajani fighting against a Phyrexian at first, but then the image kind of stutters. And there's no Phyrexian, but he just sees a person, a Capetian knight that Ajani is just kind of speaking calmly with. We can kind of infer that like that knight is probably a Phyrexian in disguise, and this scrying glass which he's created has inadvertently given him the ability to kind of determine if people are Phyrexians or not.
There's that movie with the sunglasses where the guy can see if people are aliens or not.
They're I almost said Among Us. They're here.
And that's the same thing where he says obey on all the signs and everything. He sees through the propaganda, you know?
They live.
That's it. I've never seen it, but so his scrying disc is very much the sunglasses from that.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and it's just like he sees like Ajani fighting the Phyrexian, and then like it stutters and he realizes that it's like it just can't focus on Phyrexians, the scrying glass, for whatever reason.
It's interesting that they were fighting at first rather than just talking.
Or kissing, which I would have thought they would be doing.
Yeah,
maybe Ajani's a freak. I guarantee you, there's people who are freaks for Ajani.
Does Ajani kiss cops? I hope not.
I hope not.
Yeah, you guys started talking about Ajani kissing, and my cat ran across the room. She's into it.
She's a freak, man.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay if she is, honestly.
Yeah,
Amy's cat loves cops.
So they split back up. They Karn opts to take the basement this time by himself, just as Sten foreshadows for us by saying that room is disconcerting. There's so much noise from the boilers that you'd never be able to hear something sneaking up on you.
Karn will take Scooby with him. Don't worry about it.
Hopefully they don't run into a 3-foot tall sandwich on the way.
Yeah, just like in one bite, Karn the whole thing, toothpick included.
It doesn't take long before they group back up. However, though, they keep splitting up during like this story, and like just instantly keep like within 2 paragraphs, like just like we got to meet back up. Basically, it's Joda that ends up finding Karn in the basement first. Over kind of this raucous din of everything. Joda kind of
toppled over 3-foot sandwich, eating it like an animal.
Yeah, exactly.
Hand over fist.
just a chicken sandwich, some kind of bird meat in there. I'm not sure. Just like a bunch of wires sticking out of his mouth. Like this, like half bitten off Phyrexian horror in between 2 slices of bread. You don't have to worry.
People, instead of like adding electric shock, instead of adding hot sauce for the thrill on your food, you have electric shocks,
or just batteries, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it enhances the taste. I like it better like this, I swear.
Battery soup is great. It really clears my sinuses. He doesn't even have a nose. Like
battery soup. Yeah. I made a toaster soup in the bath one time.
So yeah, Joda come to find them, followed shortly after by Jaya and Sten, because they all realizes that the compasses don't work. They need to be recalibrated, refigured somehow. Joda does notice as he begins to work, though, he notices this cut along Jaya's arm, like this huge cut bleeding a lot.
Zombo bite. That's being hidden from the group.
Yeah, essentially, that's like she's being super cagey about it, and she's like, and like Joda's like, why did you tell us that like you got cut or whatever? It's like, it doesn't matter. I was just like walking and like scraped my arm on something. It's not a big deal, guys.
She's like, I already had my tetanus shot in the last 10 years. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't need another one. Yeah.
But my vaccine passport's at home, and we're locked in the tower.
Fair. Okay, good enough for me.
So obviously Joda is skeptical, asking what if she had been infected by glistening oil. She's like, I'm not. He's like, you wouldn't know if you were. Like, there's kind of this.
It takes 10 days to show symptoms, frankly. So
yeah, exactly.
You should stay home.
Yeah, well, I mean, she is quarantining technically. So she's super cagey about it, but the Inquisition is interrupted as a commotion sounds from upstairs. The last member who hasn't rejoined the group, Teferi, hears something up. Or there's some noise upstairs, just kind of as they realize that Teferi's not with them. Jaya and Sten go to investigate. Quickly do run into Teferi, but Karn and Joda stay behind to work on the compasses.
Okay. All right.
As they're working, Karn realizes, like they do have this kind of heart to heart where they've been kind of butting heads for a long time. Joda is like as old as Karn, pretty much, much older than any of the other ones here. Again, Joda is immortal. Karn is also immortal as a golem, but they both kind of like were around in Urza's time. Like Karn was created by Urza, right?
Yeah.
So they both kind of have this like realization that, or this like mutual respect. And Karn says like, yeah, if you were actually a Phyrexian, I don't think you'd be such an asshole. Still, you'd probably be like trying to sweet talk me or whatever. But Joda's just still being like really, really mean, I guess. So Karn goes ahead and reveals to him another false location of the Silex. This time, it's in London Gatwick. Right after he does so right after he tells them the location of the Silex, the walls explode with Phyrexian monstrosities. And I have another quote for you guys here. Creatures flung themselves at Karn and Joda, cables outstretched and mouths seeking. Joda attempted to ready his magic, but the light around his hand was dim, flickering. He had exhausted himself from portaling them to the tower, then again from creating the locators. A half dozen more creatures launched themselves at Joda, wet and fluttering. Karn adjusted his stance to defend Joda. He seized a creature from the air and ripped it in half. He flung it outward at the other creatures. He swiped another from the air, but there were too many. Some got through. Joda seared one with a blast of pale light, then fell to his knees in exhaustion. Creatures had started to climb up his body, their probing mouths searching for his skin. Even though Karn's instinct cried out for him to watch the walls, he turned to Joda. He peeled off the creatures, ripping clinging tentacles in the process, and flung them aside. The disconnected tentacles bound to Joda in clots. The clusters began to grow sucking mouths. Flame roared through the room. The roar deafened Karn. Heat rushed through the room, sterilizing it, and poured over his body in sheets. It felt pleasant, warm, and ticklish. The flames poured forward and licked at Joda gently. The creatures lodged on his body bubbled. Karn reached forward and this time was able to remove the remaining clinging creatures one at a time. The limbs drooped free. He pulled the rest from Joda's prone body, then turned to face their rescuer, Jaya. Her fire centered around her white hot and illuminated her face. Its light cast the lines worn into her skin into relief, and the heat rippling the air caused her white hair to lash around her. Her eyes reflected the firelight. She smiled, her lips tight. Stan ran into the room. Jaya's blast wrapped around him, not touching him, but repelling his Phyrexian attackers. He stabbed a small creature, crab skittering around the floor, pinning it. It writhed, legs outstretched and twisting, and he used a dagger to bisect it. So, there's an attack.
Hear me out, though.
Mm-hmm.
We got these suckling mouths. Everything feels warm, comfortable, and tingly.
A little ticklish, but playful.
A little ticklish, playful. I'll let you guys do the mental math there, but I think that these Phyrexes might not be so bad. Maybe one or two to have around. It could be okay.
1 second. Let me consult the post-it notes on my chest to do this math here and get back to it.
Yeah, some glistening KY jelly, and we're good to go.
Ew.
I'm sure we have said in a Phyrexian. I'm sure we have called Phyrexians Dommy Mommies before. So
we called the
Dominaria Mominaria United, baby.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Goth Mommy Phyrexian Dommy. So
there you go.
There it is.
It is established Lore Boys canon that
JV pull up our own clip that we can't even fucking remember.
I remember the Dommy Mommy from Battletoads, but that was the only one I remembered.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Oh, her too. Yeah, the sorceress. Yeah.
So yeah, they managed to repel this attack. And I was mistaken before. Sorry, Teferi was with them last time. That now they realize that Teferi's not with them. So they kind of they kind of like, oh shit, that's not good. There's a bunch of Phyrexians running around at Teferi's on his own. Sten remains with Joda, while Karn and Jaya set out to find Teferi, because Joda is still just completely wiped out from all the magic that he's done. He ain't got none left, basically.
Right.
As Karn is climbing with Jaya, he does compliment her pyromancy and its ability to destroy Phyrexians, which does seem to be true. Like every instance, it's like, oh, they smush one and it splits in two, or they stab one and it divides. The fire does seem to like shut them down. Like when she blasts them with fire and then someone stabs it, then it just dies, kind of thing.
That's the solution in the 12 labors of Hercules for the Hydra as well, is his friend would cauterize after cutting off the heads.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, so the cartoon lied to me. He crushed it with rocks.
Yeah. I've been listening to a bunch of like just that type of stuff to fall asleep, like old myths and stuff. And the
fun.
12 labors of Hercules is something that I was like thinking maybe to do an episode on. And it's funny
I'd be dope as hell, dude.
Yeah.
I'd be super into that.
Cool.
Next week, baby. Guess now in the loser channel for the patrons.
throw this episode out. Jamie, go ahead. Hit us with more of the 12 myths of Hercules. I'm done talking. Okay, I'm just listening. So Karn's telling her, like, hey, good job with your pyromancy. I noticed it's really good at killing Phyrexians. That makes you like super trustworthy. I'm going to tell you where the Silex is, baby. Don't you worry about it. Obviously, it's another fake location. This time it's in a place called Sakata, which I thought was just too great a name to make up a real life one for it. Sakata champ.
Hey, if you're out there, suck at us.
Yeah.
So as they're walking and talking, they hear a shout from Teferi above, and they take off running. I have another quote for you guys here. They found Teferi pinned to the floor by a Phyrexian monstrosity that loomed over him like a hungry spider. Blood soaked his robes from a slash in his gut. Karn tore the creature from Teferi's body, even though its claws, hooked into his flesh, took muscle with it. He slammed it against the wall, pulverizing it. Jaya ran into the room. Get down. Karn pivoted and hunched his body over Teferi to protect him. Jaya bathed the room in fire. Phyrexian monstrosities, dozens of them too many, screeched in agony. The cries died in despairing bubbling into whimpering, then silence. The flames roasted Karn's back, scorching the blood and guts onto his metal body. So they managed to save Teferi for now, which is a good thing.
Quotes doing work in that save thing where it's just like, oh, quick! It's of course it's like, no, you have to break off the Phyrexian and push it the opposite way, like the way it went in, right? Otherwise, it's going to do way more damage.
You need one of those twisters. You got to like twist it around, to make sure that you pry the head out and you're not cutting it off inside the body. You need
tweezers to make sure you don't get Lyme disease from the fucking glistening oil.
Yeah.
So they do manage to save him, but he's gravely injured. And they kind of realize like, oh, it's getting pretty dire. We probably need to get this guy some help, huh?
He needs to get to the hospital, quickly throw him out the window.
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of getting a little frustrated, but Karn at this point sees some old copper wiring in the wall and realizes that it has been infected by the Phyrexians. So they've essentially like
so disappointed.
Yeah, right. They ruined that. That's perfectly good copper wire that they ruined. I mean, the methods would still just like bundle it up and keep it in their house, right? So
yeah. Does it matter if this metal has a mouth? Like, can you include it in the weight?
But what Karn realizes that like if they've permeated the wires, they're essentially like turn this whole building into one big Phyrexian at this point.
Would it be like a hive, or would it like get up at some point? Like, how does this work?
It's more just like it could like spawn monstrosities off of it, turn other metal into stuff. It's more like a nervous system than like it doesn't necessarily have like muscle, although it could. There are big Phyrexians, which we'll get to by the end of this episode.
It's just like a gingerbread man living in a gingerbread house. It's Phyrexians in a big old Phyrexian building,
Karn noticed the copper wire taste of ginger, and candy canes glued to it with frosting, and he knew they had been doomed.
Like those swirly candies with like the red and white, but they're like gut gashing,
like
matching teeth in the middle.
The peppermint disc, like just
and cum drop buttons, right? So
There's something you can draw is a gingerbread house that also is kind of grotesque.
I've got a few ideas already. That is pretty good. Yeah.
So they realize that Karn realizes that this old copper wiring all goes to a power stone, which keeps the lights on and is going to be, if these copper wires are the nervous system, then this power stone is the brain. Is the brain for sure, the mother brain. So I have a longer quote for you guys now. In the uppermost chamber, the Power Stone's glow dominated the claustrophobic space, shining directly down into the central pedestal's control panel and filling the small circular room with its sickly yellow light. The arched windows ringing the room were still tightly shuttered with steel. Karn wished he could open one and feel the night's cool air on his body. He found a metal access panel and popped it open. The Power Stone seemed integrated into a wire nest, which no doubt connected to the lockdown system, the boiler room, the vents, and everything else in the tower. Sten pressed himself close to the panel to look. It's worse than I thought. Karn glanced at Sten. He had told each planeswalker a false location for the Silex, but he had not yet tested Sten. He spoke, low enough that the others would not hear. I need to confine the Silex's location. If I am damaged and cannot reach it, the knowledge cannot be lost. I understand, Sten said, solemn. He did not seem at all perturbed. His focus lay on the wires and the walls. Should that happen, Karn said, you are to determine which among the planeswalkers you can trust so that the Silex can be brought to New Phyrexia in order to destroy the Phyrexians at their center. I hesitate to ask this, as it would involve asking a planeswalker to sacrifice themselves to repair my mistake. It would be an immense responsibility, Sten said. Karn pretended reluctance, then spoke. I concealed it in the ruins of Trocaire, on Sarpedia. That's all I needed, Sten said. His voice, a sudden hiss, sounded horribly familiar. Sten threw his robes from his shoulders. Surgery lines, previously invisible, deepened in his skin. The buttons on his shirt popped free as his chest seemed to swell and swell, only to burst, butterflying open, ribs splayed. Iron cords poured from his torso's cavity rather than intestines, weeping mucus and blood. His face, before all this horror, seemed ecstatic, as if he had finally found his purpose and fulfilled it. He raised his head, his eyes focused upward, his lips moving as if in prayer. Hand-like claws emerged from his eyes and reached around his skull to grip it. His metallic his metallic intestines slithered across the floor, hooking into the Thran Power Stone, and his entire body stiffened. The Power Stone's light throbbed, then dim, as Stem consumed its energy. His mouth gaped, frozen in a voiceless whisper. He had converted his entire body into an antenna, Karn realized, and transmitted his hard-won knowledge back to Shieldred, confiding in her the Silex's location. Its false location.
Good. You know what? Like, this guy couldn't keep a poker face for 30 more seconds. He had to just go and turn himself into the fucking satellite dish that you find on the top of your TV, you know? Like, if you just waited a little longer, went to a secret place, you know, like, you could just keep Karn in the dark, but instead you just, like, blow your cover. Like, it could have been useful for longer, I feel like. But
yeah, it's basically like Karn turned to him and was like, if you're a cop, you need to tell me. And he just pulls out a gun immediately. Like, what the fuck?
Imagine a spy, like, overseas, right? They finally get the info they need, and they're like, haha, that's exactly what I needed to know! And like, runs out of the room or something.
Vladimir Putin's hands come out of his eyes and peel back his face to reveal it's also Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to, like, the Phyrexians' lack of self-preservation, right? Where, like,
and their hubris as well.
They're hubris, and also they're how this works. So they have these sleeper agents who don't seem to know that they're sleeper agents. Like, Sten probably did not know that he was a sleeper agent until the Manchurian Candidate code phrase was spoken, right? Yeah. So, like, this happens, and I'm sure Shieldred's instructions were like, no, don't dick around. If you have the location of the Silex, that's the only thing you're good for to me. So, like, just tell me. Just tell me right away. That's got to be your primary focus. Yeah. And he was also, like, at the Power Stone. They just kind of, like, conveniently, like, this is right where we need to be. Whereas, like, if everyone's like, cool, done with, or like if Karn had, like, destroyed the Power Stone or, like, removed it or something, maybe it would have got harder.
That makes sense to me. And that they have to act like Sten until they hear the secret word pineapple or whatever, and then they just, like, break out of it immediately. And
exactly. And this is like it kind of says in the quote, like, he had finally found his purpose and fulfilled it. Like, this is ecstasy for him. This is all, like, that Phyrexian has ever wanted to do was, like, antenna. It's, you know,
true.
Sometimes you got to nut. You know, sometimes you just can't wait.
Had a computer orgasm. I wonder what that would be like.
Where we're up. I mean, what happens to Sten, I guess we'll find out after the break. Stop him, Teferi grunted. He clutched at his gut wound, and his eyes brightened with anger. Don't let him. Jaya lunged forward, her hands outthrust. Fire blazed. Sten did not spare her a glance. His bloody wires reared up from the ground, debris sticking to their gore and wrapped themselves around her like anacondas, binding her hands and pinning them to her sides. Jaya, unable to use her magic without searing herself, struggled against Sten to free her hands, but she couldn't breathe. Her face blued. Karn charged toward her. Fast as he tore fibers away from her body, more writhed into place. Small, tight lines threaded themselves between his fingers, defying him. Jaya's eyes seemed so wide, so panicked. Teferi sat up and readied his magic, but his spell, cast in such a weakened state, did little more than flicker into a nebulous blue haze before fading. Teferi moaned and sagged back onto the floor. The blood soaking his garments deepened in color as it wicked through the cloth. Joda ran to Teferi's side, muttering a healing spell under his breath. We have to get out of here, Joda shouted. Karn agreed. The control panel had a straightforward layout. He inserted the key Sten had given him into the pedestal. He opened up a metal lid, then flipped the toggle. The steel shutters jolted upward, the chain within the walls rattled, and gears ground. Cool night air poured into the tower, but along with that fresh air came noises, gibbering and shrieks from the city below. Karn could not free Jaya from the cables writhing around her, so he turned. He dismembered Sten. No, not Sten, the Phyrexian who had killed Sten, who had completed him and taken his place, with efficiency. He tried not to think about his actions. He removed bones from sockets and tossed the pieces aside, as easily as stripping a chicken at a banquet. Jaya inhaled, her breath a rasp that carried through the dark, then blasted Not Sten with a gout of scarlet flame. The fire poured over Karn and sizzled across Not Sten's flesh, frying his organic components. The Phyrexian sagged to the floor, a collection of blackened metal and crisp organics. Joda looked up at Jaya, his hands outstretched over Teferi's stomach. I'm too exhausted to heal him. I can keep him from bleeding out, but that's about it. We need help.
Can Karn not control metal? Is it not easier to like do something with that to instead of like manually ripping it apart like wine chicken?
My assumption is like
the
not
dark
for.
meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you got it in there. I'm happy for you. The thigh of the Phyrexian is cheaper, and honestly, I prefer it.
Yeah, and you can reuse the bones for broth.
Yep.
Yeah. My assumption is that like Karn can't control Phyrexian metal, right?
Okay.
Like if it's been infected, so it's like half organic, and he can't control organic. So
it's magic.
Like, magnets doesn't work. Does magnets work on all metal? No, right?
Does magnets? No, definitely not. Doesn't work on copper, for example.
Doesn't work on gold.
But if you have a copper tube and you drop a magnet down the copper tube, it'll fall super slow. Yeah,
I remember that
because of Letz's law. I'm not sure. Faraday's law. I don't know. Crunch at us in the comments. I guess.
A little.
What was it? What did you say earlier? Suck at us. I don't know.
Suck at us. Suck our copper tube and call us Sally.
Sure. I guess welcome back from the break, everybody.
Yeah.
So they realize that they need some help, and you guys might not remember, but last episode, Ajani gave Karn just the thing he would need to get help.
A gun.
Karn had never thought of it himself.
What was it? Now it was.
What was it? I was just gonna say it, but now if you guys want to guess, I always love this guessing game.
Was it parts of the Mirari? I can't remember at all.
No.
I'm getting it mixed up with
the Karn had turned the Mirari into something called Memnarch, which went crazy and like kicked off the new Phyrexian invasion because it dabbled in glistening oil. That's why when he said earlier, when he was talking from that quote, when he said, "Oh, I need somebody to like sacrifice themselves," which would be rough because it was my mistake. That probably ties really closely to Karn's arrogance here too, or his need to fix this is like he feels ultimately responsible because he had a jar of glistening oil, then created a sentient machine to play with it essentially while he was gone. So,
right. Yeah, I thought I had it, but I'm getting it mixed up with like a game that I played recently. I thought it was like a thing, like a flask of borrowed time or something like that.
Sure,
but it wasn't quite that.
It wasn't quite that.
Yeah.
No, Karn uses the amulet that Ajani had given him to summon the Weatherlight. Did that thump come from upstairs, Jimbo?
Something fell up there.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
No, so Ajani had given Karn an amulet which can summon the Weatherlight, which is an arcane skyship used by Dominaria's resident Justice League to defend the plane. So it's kind of like
the Gatewatch thing. It's
not the Gatewatch. The Gatewatch are planeswalkers who defend like all the planes from Nicol Bolas and other threats.
Okay.
This is like specific to Dominaria. Like the Weatherlight doesn't leave Dominaria, so it's like Dominaria's. Okay. I'm sure there is a Darnell. Let us know what the parallel, like the Justice League is for Earth, who are the ones who protect the galaxy. Because I'm sure there's.
I think it's the Lantern Corps.
Yeah, it is the lanterns going in the sky. I always see them in space.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess there's like another matchup that's like the best of the Lantern Corps, and then also Space Batman and Space Superman.
What else can we say to be frustratingly
ignorant
about?
Could you imagine like an alien Superman? How cool would that be?
Yeah, ridiculous. Superman is American. I will have it.
Yeah, and he has he has no weaknesses. He doesn't even have a kryptonite.
If I go crazy, babe.
So they do it. They Karn uses this amulet, summons the Weatherlight. The Weatherlight, sky hooks them out from the Dark Knight.
That thing, yeah.
Yeah, they managed to get out essentially.
Fulton system, I think it's called.
Sure. They, when they're there, they're speaking with the crew of the Weatherlight, and they kind of devise a plan. Karn realizes that trying to stop the Phyrexians from spreading is useless. The city of Argivia, that they had just left behind was sure to fall. Again, like they were trapped in this building with like the shutters drawn this whole time, so sure that they had contained the infection, and they like opened the shutters, and then there's these sounds of shrieks from the city below. Like it was clearly already popping off down there. They just didn't realize it. I mean, I like to think my Lore Boys canon here is that like the way that creature was able to spread through that building so effectively was that it already had,
Yeah.
Of course.
All those lines and everything was like already spread through. It was just like now that it's popped off, it's like more noticeable.
They're out of the flame and into the frying pan now, right?
And the frying pan's got eyes and mouths all over it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And an eye and a mouth and a mouth and an eye and.
Cast iron pan fucking bit me.
You better get your tetanus shot then.
No.
So he realizes like they won't be able to stop the Phyrexians across the face of Dominaria. They're already too rooted in. The infection spread too far. And he does also know he'd fought Phyrexians before in the first time this happened, right? He does also know like their strategies often divide and conquer also. So he's like, the only way we have a chance is if we can convince the Phyrexians to come to us, like for them to center all their attacks on like one space where we are, and we have to draw them out to do that. So there's three things on Dominaria that the Phyrexians want more than anything else. They want the Silex, obviously. They want an ancient Thran workshop, which had built the Weatherlight, known as the Mana Rig. So there's this place called the Mana Rig, which is a Thran workshop which can build like flying ships and all these other mechanical wonders like not seen throughout the rest of the universe.
Fantastic name for a magic shipyard. Love it.
Yeah. Mana Rig, yeah. And the third one is Karn himself. He's immune to the infection, and the Phyrexians, that probably flummoxes them a little bit. He was part of the people who had defeated them in the last one, and in the last invasion, I should say.
It's not really a joke, but I just like flummoxed Phyrexians as a title.
I'll put it on the list. How many X's in flummox? Does it 2?
I want to say 1, 2 M's, 1 X.
Okay.
Figure that out after the show.
Yep.
Sure. So he's like, okay, we'll split up again. We'll gather allies, and we'll draw everyone back to the Mana Rig. Because, like, obviously, he can move the Silex, he can move himself, but he can't move the Mana Rig. Right. And he'll make their stand there. Karn reveals his scrying glass to everyone, and lets everyone know that it doesn't work on Phyrexians. So he's like, if I call and you don't pick up the phone,
that's where the other thing is, dude. It's just like, here's the thing that doesn't work. I have revealed my secrets to you. Like, come on, fuck, it's time.
No, it does work, because it works in not working, because he realizes that he can, if I call you and you don't pick up the phone, I'm going to shoot on sight. Because if it doesn't work to scry on you, that means you're complicated, essentially, right?
Leave your ringers on, please.
Yeah, exactly. The bane of my life is my wife and her always having her phone on silent. So
I'm the same way, always on silent, man. Yeah,
I was for a long time. Then I got married, we had a kid, and I was like, it's really inconvenient sometimes when people can't reach me now. My priorities and my responsibilities change. I don't blame you, single guy living in the city, for having your phone on silent.
Right.
But
but my dang wife.
Yeah, exactly. The old ball and chain. Don't worry, I had my tetanus for the manacle wounds. So they decide to split up, right? Karn and Teferi decide they're going to head straight to the mana rig and they're going to begin to prepare the defenses there. Joda heads to the elves of Yavimaya. And Jaya, whom we're going to follow right now, decides to head to find Danitha Capeshen, the daughter of Aaron Capeshen, the leader of Clan Capeshen. The Capeshen
on planet Capeshen.
Yeah, there's a lot of Capeshens.
So Aaron Capeshen is the Phyrexian whom Ajani had chased out the window at the beginning of all of this. So that's the person who went out. The
vaguely have we talked about it before? Because I vaguely remember making a Capesh joke. Like Capesh, you get it? No,
it's very possible. So
okay.
The Capeshen house of Benalia, the kingdom, I guess it has all these different royal houses.
Oh yeah, of Benalia. That we definitely talked about this.
Yeah.
The Capeshen house specifically is an ancient house of warriors once chosen by Urza to become part of his bloodline project, which super unfortunate 90s magic writers that this is the angle you went with. But
hey, going forwards, never call anything the Bloodline Project ever.
Yeah.
And I mean,
no, that's it, you could have went with ancestry.ca.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have one of those. It's very interesting.
Well, then you're part of the Bloodline Project.
Damn it.
So the Bloodline Project was, true to its name, a large project of genetic engineering set up to create perfect warriors to fight the first Phyrexian invasion. So this house, the Capeshen house, was literally eugenics to fight Phyrexians, essentially. So they're like, those are probably valuable allies, right?
That's not the worst reason to do eugenics.
No, sure. Let's not start defending eugenics on the podcast.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
And getting like good EVs in your Pokemon, I think are the only two good reasons. Is Robot Invasion and an okay shiny Charizard. I think are the two good reasons to do that.
Yeah, there's certain moves that you want to breed into, right? So
Karn's like good at math, and there's like big infinities and small infinities, right? But like getting into arguing which ones are good or versus bad, or like which ones are big versus small, have very little like application to the real world. And the same with good versus bad eugenics. I don't think we should be arguing about it because I don't think we should be applying it to whatever, So,
well, Jamie, I'm not about to breed you into a perfect machine warrior, so don't worry about it,
dude. Yeah, if I could convince anyone to breed with me, I wouldn't be on this podcast.
Okay, so Pete took the right. He said there's some good eugenics. Pete said centrism. He said let's not argue about it. I'll go on record, complete the circuit, say eugenics bad. There you go.
That's the three of us.
Didn't I say
I thought I said eugenics bad?
I thought I said eugenics
I'm
bad.
putting words in your mouth. Don't you worry about it.
Okay.
We've bred the perfect soldier to put words in his mouth.
I over a 28 or 26 year friendship with Jamie have bred him into the perfect rube at this point.
Yeah. Dude, by the way, who's the first guy named Eugene who fucking made this shit all up, right? He must have been
Is that why you think it is?
It's just some like pale, like overbite, like that's what I picture. I think of Eugene, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he would be a
your name is Eugene
or something like that, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. So Jaya heads to the camp to find Danitha Capeshen, who's the daughter of Aaron Capeshen, the new Phyrexian, because Danitha, with her father being a Phyrexian, is going to be the de facto leader of the Capeshens now, right?
Right. Assuming she's not a Phyrexian.
Assuming she hasn't been complicated. Exactly. Ajani is at the Capeshen camp whenever she arrives. He had the same thought. Hey, the Capeshens are going to be good allies to have in this fight. There are some other allies from across the plane with Ajani, are some like elvish archers, the Llanowar elves, and some other people kind of like the Phyrexian invasion has kicked off across the plane. So there's kind of like people just, they're doing the zombie thing where they're forming their little bastions while the...
And they have like sleeper agents like everywhere in every settlement. Yeah. Like every like camp of like dirt farming, like cavemen, all the way up to like the actual politicians within the tower, right? Yeah,
so you'll remember when Karn scried on Ajani, he was talking to a Capeshen knight who was the Phyrexian, and it showed him like kind of fighting him. So like they were speaking calmly, but that one either popped off at one point and Ajani killed him, or is still sitting in the camp undetected, right?
Yeah.
So Ajani's at the camp, and Jaya says like, "Hey, cool, you guys have been gathering forces. That's great. We're doing the same thing, doing it at the mana rig. We got a plan. It's gonna work great." Danitha lets Jaya know she can't commit the Capetian fighters until they have rescued their patriarch, Aaron. She's like, "I gotta rescue my dad first. I gotta use my warriors designed to fight Phyrexians to fight the Phyrexians who took my daddy."
Bad news for her though. Isn't he a monster? He's been completed.
He has been completed, but she doesn't necessarily know what that means. And, is she going to just believe this person who says, "I want your army"? If this person comes in and says, "Oh, he's beyond hope," like she's going to do what she can to try and protect her house and protect the patriarch and try everything she can to save her father. Like Jamie was saying, can't really blame her, I guess.
No, not at all.
So Jaya too doesn't like the delay. Thinks it's putting the whole plane at risk, but she came here to get the Benelish at her side, the Capetian specifically, and so agrees that she'll smoke Aaron out of the cave that Ajani had tracked him to. So Ajani had tracked him to a cave to the south, and she's like, "Hey, fire seems to work really well on them. Fire is great in caves because not much place to avoid it."
Yeah, got nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly. So she goes with them. She says, "Hey, we will lay siege to this cave." Essentially, they track them to this cave in the south. They see these like two kind of Phyrexians kind of hanging out outside, just like standing guard, essentially.
Did the Phyrexians like complicate like the doltish comedy guards from Monty Python who remain like as kind of like, "Oh, you can't do that." Like sort of like
he's saying, "You go with him. I'll guard the prince, and he'll stay here with me."
It's just like shoots an arrow out a window, and they're just like the chittering horrors, just like, "Oh."
So the assault starts strong. Jaya fills the cave with smoke and fire, takes out some monsters. The human knights, the Capetian charge. There's these volleys of Llanowar arrows coming in, but it's really not long before the human knights are being outclassed by their eldritch opponents. Here's another quote for you guys. A vortex of flame shielding her, Jaya stalked down the hillside. As she blasted Phyrexians, she glimpsed brief horrors behind her gouts of fire. A completed woman, iron coils escaping from her heart, stripping a Benelish knight of his armor like a child removing the limbs from an insect. A completed child, plunging her wires beneath another knight's armor, bursting him apart from the inside. Danitha fought back-to-back with her second-in-command, her face grim. The Benelish were being overwhelmed. Ajani led his Llanowar scouts into the fray, cleaving the Phyrexian monstrosities with his double-headed axe. The Phyrexian advance halted, stymied. Jaya thought, for one hopeful moment, that the Leonin had turned the battle in their favor, until a new Phyrexian emerged from the cave, more monstrosities at his heels. He was human form, broad and muscular, with pale armor merging into his torso. Metal spikes curved through his pale blonde hair like horns, and his orange irised eyes wept black oil across his ice-white cheeks. He held up his double set of arms, which merged at the biceps, in ironic welcome. And here I was hoping for some of my old crew might be in the rescue party. Shame. I was so looking forward to catching up. Jaya, despite the fire in her hands, chilled down to her gut. Airtie. She'd heard of him, sure, one of the original crew of the Weatherlight. He'd been dead for centuries and still had death's pallor, though some force reanimated his twitching features. His eyes possessed a terrible intelligence. "It's such a pleasure to be back," he said, "and I have learned so much in my time away. Would you like to see?" And Aaron Capetian stepped from the cave's mouth. So this figure, Airtie, was an old Dominarian mage who had been with the on the Weatherlight, a crew of the Weatherlight during the first Phyrexian invasion. I believe the Weatherlight was actually created in response to the first Phyrexian invasion. So, or they got access to it during the first Phyrexian, and it's like what turned the tide, their ability to kind of like fly over the plane and like take out kind of like node clusters. Airtie had been a mage on the Weatherlight, but eventually had been corrupted by the Phyrexians in the first Phyrexian invasion centuries ago. Completion wasn't the same back then. They didn't like necessarily like turn people into Phyrexian monsters. It was more just like, "Hey, you want to come fight for the evil gore robots?" And people were like, "Yeah, sure. I'll still be me, but fighting for them."
Yeah. It's kind of funny to think in like an actual world of Magic, where it's called Magic, that air superiority is still so
good.
strong.
Still big, dude. I just watched House Moving Castle last night. It holds there too,
I guess that's a type in the actual card game too. It's flying, right? And you need
absolutely. The Weatherlight is a car, and is a card, not a card. It's a car in the sky. That's a boat.
I equip car. I win.
Yeah. I mean, there's also vehicles in Magic the Gathering. You can get cards which are vehicles. Some of them will have like crew costs. So if you have a crew cost of 4, you have to tap creatures with combined power up to 4, and then you can that artifact will turn into the vehicle will turn into a creature for that turn. You can use it as a creature, then it turns back into just an artifact, which is like harder to target. You have a lot of spells which will say like destroy target creature, but not necessarily as many which will say destroy target artifacts.
Right. Yeah, and if you want to fuel the vehicle, you have to have at least one land card out and have at least one dinosaur card die a few turns before.
Exactly. 10 million turns before you played the forest. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, got it.
James got a pencil in his hand. I feel like
he's got chopsticks. What the fuck is going on?
They're chopsticks.
Jamie taking loser titles by hand. I wanted to comment on the fact that I love how great. I again, reproducing it has been one of my great pleasures. The Magic the Gathering art has made me a better artist. I love how wildly violent the book is, or any of this fiction is around the card game that has just a still image of just the idea of a regular looking lady and her chest is flayed open and metal tentacles are pulling a soldier apart like a bug, and then the other one that is exploding a man from the inside is fucking insane.
A lot of body horror.
Mortal Kombat fatalities, right?
Then you go to Friday Night Magic, and it's a guy with his butt crack showing, never thrown a punch in his life. All sorts play Magic. I'm just kidding, but that's the stereotype.
I'm fiddling with my Keyforge decks here. I mean, I think primarily it's like censorship laws where these are the cards are marketed to kids, right? In a lot of ways, and having gore, they would probably get reviewed by some government body that would be you can't put that on there.
Australia,
but I feel
definitely.
I feel when it's written, it's not there's no. Is there a rating system for books? I don't think so. There's just what shelf does it go on at the bookstore, right?
Yeah.
So you could probably get away with telling this story a lot more in writing than you could in art.
Because the kid's not going to imagine the kid's going to imagine the most violent thing he's ever seen.
I guess
plucking a bug apart, opposed to a human body being ripped apart by metal tentacles, right?
The Magic website, this is not an actual novel. These used to be novels, but now they're just released online. But I assume the website has are you 13 to enter? You have to be 13 to enter this website or whatever, right? For them to kind of protect themselves.
Every 13-year-old I know was born in 1901 on January 1st.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's the gorier your book is, the bigger words you have to use. So the kids can't understand it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And if they are able to understand it, then they've spent enough time reading that they're able to process that info in a way that we don't have to worry about kids processing it, right?
Yeah.
God willing.
Yes.
So Airtai, playing with Aaron as though he were a child plaything, he kind of steps out of the cave, greets them, and then says, "Look what I've been working on." Essentially, and Aaron Compassion steps out of the cave. Aaron's face opens up to reveal that Airtai had given him a steel skull, crystal eye, and a glass viewing window to his brain, which I just thought was very fun. It's a fun little touch. This guy is having fun.
RGB in there?
Yeah, he's got the RAM sticks just dug into his brain.
Liquid cooling. You can see the liquid moving and everything.
It's blood, right? So unlike other complicated Phyrexians, that you kind of said this before too. I didn't want to jump the shark, but or bury the lead, I should say. But other Phyrexians have been Phyrexian horrors. Aaron's work doesn't seem to be the same level as the rest. There's clockwork intricacy, all these different pieces. There was no glass viewing panels and other ones. This was clearly Airtai considers himself, an auteur.
I saw clockwork intricacy where they put glass eyelids on that guy and made him watch all the things.
Glass eyelids, are those just contact lenses? I don't know. Oh no, I guess not eyelids, right?
Yeah, you can't close your eyes. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you cut the eyelid off, surgically, and then just put
and then gave somebody contact. But they would just be like a snake now.
They dry out
the cap over to keep it moist, right?
The problem is they dry out. I was with someone who had LASIK eye surgery or whatever today, and the sun was out, and they didn't have sunglasses. They're squinting the whole time, and I was like, thinking in my head, lasers didn't fix that, idiot. But
like you currently wearing glasses,
like of course lasers didn't fix that.
Yeah,
like,
but that's
still
also
need sunglasses.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you could get like tinted, contact lenses that just like adjusted to the sun or whatever.
Do you want the transitional?
Yeah. Well, figure it out, science heads.
Yeah, Jamie just wants to go outside and have his eyes turn black if he stares at the sun. Like that's what you're looking for.
Sounds pretty cool, hononestly.
Yeah, it does sound kind of neat.
You know what? My eyes I will already go blind if I stare at the sun long enough. But I want science to make it happen like that. You know.
Good snap. That picked up on my end.
No, good. Good.
Who knows if the bot picked it up though? So okay, so Aaron has this like clockwork intricacy, but he also shows an awareness, unlike a lot of other Phyrexians. He seems to be like trying to voice things to his daughter. He seems to be like sort of like fighting his movements as he kind of steps out of the cage. He's still himself.
Right, all this clockwork shit is like, I should be able to stare at the sun safely.
Yeah, exactly. He keeps just trying to turn his head up to stare at the sun. No, he's still himself beneath all that plastic surgery and LASIK, you know?
Right.
So I have a quote to finish us off here. My father is not your plaything. Danitha's voice sounded flat with shock, but her eyes burned with rage. Her hands on her broadsword, she stalked toward Ertai and Aaron. Her father watched her with pained hope, for what Jaya did not know. No Phyrexians moved to intercept her. Ertai watched with fascination. Aaron, do your duty. Aaron lurched forward. He raised his hands jerkily and drew his sword. He lunged at Danitha. She parried, looking startled. His movements seemed bizarre, twitchy and unwieldy, like he was resisting himself, or resisting Ertai's command. He swiped down again, and this time Danitha caught his blow on her broadsword. She forced him back, throwing him off. His intact eye wept glistening oil as he marched toward her again. Danitha, said Aaron, his voice strange and distorted, do your duty. His words were a distorted echo of Ertai's. Devastation crossed Danitha's face so quickly that Jaya, at this distance, almost missed it. But then Danitha's lips firmed. Her gaze turned both steely and pitying. Yes, father. This time, when he brought his blade down on her, Danitha sidestepped. She raised her broadsword and swept it down in a graceful arc, separating his head from his shoulders. Ertai watched all this with dispassion. No respect for art, but I suppose I can always sew that back on. He waved one three-fingered hand. The mountains shook. Stone broke and rumble tumbled down. Sharp shale spun past Jaya, cutting her cheek. She gasped and clutched at her injury. A Phyrexian monstrosity broke free from the mountain in front of them, shattering it into rumble. The roar of rocks sliding from its body brought tears to Jaya's eyes. The monstrosity reared into the sky, so large that it blotted out the sun. Its plated body rose, brimming with complex mechanisms and weaponry, perched upon immense, deceptively thin legs. Its head was a battering ram, and its tail ended in a stinger dripping with oily venom. This was the first Phyrexian dreadnought that Dominaria would see this invasion.
The first. Okay.
Damn. What's a dreadnought look like? It's like real big, I guess, with a name like that.
Yeah, it's as big as a mountain. It
erupted from a mountain, so
burst through a mountain. There is a card. It's a very old card, so the art is not going to be as nice as some of the art that you guys see, and it doesn't really have a good sense of scale. But I can give you the picture here.
Dreadnought is OUGH or AUGH?
Oh no, it does have a good sense of scale. I didn't notice. Oh, I just sent that. I just sent a different picture of the Weatherlight to my wife by accident.
Babe, look, baby, it's a flying ship.
Whoa!
You can kind of see the little person there perched down at the, and this is like an old one, so this is probably from the first invasion. Who knows if this one's bigger or not?
Holy shit! Cool as hell, dude. That's not what my little kid brain would have pictured if I read the book.
There's no wrong answers. No wrong answers when you're reading. Having fun isn't hard when you have a library card.
It's like Dr. Jekyll Hyde, Dr. Hyde Jekyll.
It's almost like snake-like with like giant like tendony cables that like twist together to make its body, and its nose has like these crazy horns on it, and it has like all these like what kind of like praying mantis-y arms kind of like lining its back, and it's very cool. Very cool.
It also for some reason has like a tiny little antenna on it that has what looks like a like a grill or like a heater on it, which maybe is like its sensory organ.
Yeah, who knows?
It's like an antenna. It's like an anglerfish lure.
It's this butthole, Pete. You're not supposed to look at that.
Sorry.
Anyone,
It's got-
anyone listening who wants to see it, you can just look up Phyrexian Dreadnought. It's the art by Pete Venters.
Yeah,
And we
it'll
will
also
submit
be-
it to you if you subscribe to our Patreon on your channel. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. If you like the show, the best way to help us is to leave a review on your podcast app of choice and to tell your friends. Word of mouth is the only way that we grow the show. We've continued to grow, all thanks to you guys so far. So thank you.
We do zero off-air advertising, and it's all the whatever 1.4 million downloads that we have is all
1.25.
I've been putting
Well,
USB sticks in bottles and releasing them in the ocean.
okay. Yeah. Garbage Island is just full of USBs with one of our episodes on it, right?
Yeah, I've been spreading misinformation. I've been saying, hey, subscribe to just a different podcast. I would list usually.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Anyway, since we just lost Ethan because his country ass internet died out, I have been your host, Peter O'Donoghue. You can find me at Loreboys Podcast on Instagram, or follow the link in the Discord below to suggest episodes, talk to us, whatever you want.
If you're interested in joining the community, the best place to do that is in the Discord. So you go to discord.gg/LOREBOYS. That's Loreboys. You found the podcast. So I think you can find that, and the link will also be in the description. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Discord. I talk about my WoW hardcore characters dying. I recently got rid of my sub. We post pet pics. There's pictures of me in the chair I'm sitting in right now with my dog in the pet pics. There's my dog curled up under a cat tree. A bunch of other good stuff. It's a fun place to be. So join the Discord.
It's a good community overall, I think.
Yep. And Ethan's back, I think.
I'm back after my Discord crash.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Discord was like, don't send Magic the Gathering art to your wife. She'll leave you.
Her phone was
God
on
bless
silent
you,
anyway.
Discord.
Mr. President, no.
Magic card hits Biden in the chest. Like the Secret Service guy takes it down. It's like a Phyrexian card.
I'm just there with like 2 keys and a send DM button.
All for your wife's phone to be on silent when she receives it.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. If you guys want to support the show, we do have a patreon.com/theloreboys. Pete alluded to it earlier, but you'll get the episode art from this episode. There's a picture of the scrying glass. There's a picture of the weatherlight. If you guys want to look it up yourselves, you can. Or if you want to read along with the host, then it'll be in the episode picks chat for you there. Fun stuff like loser titles, things like that. Check out the Patreon. It looks cool here.
And like at this point, like 45 hours of bonus audio as well. We have an additional
More than
just
that.
like talking shit podcast.
Right, like 86 episodes that range
probably
between
like 500,000 hours on it, if I had to guess.
That could be it. Yeah.
It
That's a
started
guess.
off as 15 minutes, quickly became 30, and often can hit as much as 45 to an hour.
Hey,
so we got.
I'm a humble guy. I'm gonna say definitely not a million. Fewer than 1 million hours, but there's a good amount of hours.
Barely
on
though.
that.
Barely.
Yeah.
I
If you're
think
waiting
it
for a
feels like
million,
barely to me.
we'll let you know. But yeah,
We'll let you know.
if you're waiting for 1 million, I get it. If you wanted to get the max value out of your $3, then yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
If you want to play audio for the rest of your life and die listening to some stupid shit we talked about in 2019.
Yeah. And honestly, if that sounds like your thing, but you don't trust Patreon, we do have Lord Boys Prime, where we are looking for somebody to watch 1 million gallons of paint dry. We're putting on one brushstroke at a time, and we need some people to volunteer for an experiment where we're gonna put a layer of paint. You got to watch it dry, and then we'll do that 1 million times.
Wow, I was gonna say with a big enough wall, that's just the same amount of watching paint dry. But okay, on top, it's gonna like stick. It's gonna be a bump on the wall by the end of it.
Well, I was thinking about it
Someone's
practically.
done
That
the math
sounds like
on
a
that.
Twitch stream that would go viral, like something so mundane but also interesting. Because if it was just like a super close-up shot, I was thinking of it would be thick by the end of it, but a super close-up shot of a single brush stroke. And like every once in a while, you'd see a human hand come in to check how dry it was, and then you'd put another one on.
Yeah,
I think you could probably leave that on, and yeah.
Can you guys alternate it between white and then one color white and then color 2, white and then
You talking
color
about
3.
the hand or the paint? Like, do we
The
need to
paint.
hire a new guy?
No, the paint. Because once it's done, it'll be a lump on the wall. Then we can lick it and it'll look like a jawbreaker. We'll see how many licks it takes to get to the
Oh.
center.
We will be next week looking for people to sign up to lick the paint for us. And
For the
to
rest
save
of your
cost.
life.
And if you're worried about us wasting your money that you're giving to us on initiatives like this, don't worry. We're saving costs with lead paint. So we're doing pretty good. The thin estimate for a layer of paint is 0.1 millimeters and times a million and then converted to meters is about 100 meters thick. Of paint.
That's more than a
Not
lump.
that bad.
100 meters of paint?
That's a
It's
lot
like
of
300 feet. I mean,
That's a lot of paint,
That's
dude.
so much paint.
it would
I've
take
never-
so long to paint out 300 feet of paint. It would be easy to build around after that amount of time.
You know what, guys? Let's just make a million hours of a podcast. I think that sounds.
You'd be
easier
prepared
now.
for it.
I-
I'm gonna start a always live Twitch stream of just a single layer of paint drying because it seems like a thing that would go viral with weirdos.
Yeah,
right?
you just need you got to automate it, like some sort of Rube Goldberg machine that's like dipping the thing in the paint tray and then like just spinning around and like painting the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, just-
yeah,
you just
yeah.
need
And then
to
you would
manage it.
only see like human hands come in to change the bucket.
Change the bucket and move it out because it's got to move 100 meters back.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah, sure.
like
That is-
my cottage that I used to
eventually
have
gonna
in
do
PE,
it.
I was like close to the water, and there's like, won't erosion collapse the cottage into the water? My dad was like, yeah, in 400,000 years.
They have
It's just like-
races at that distance, Peter. That's like long enough to have a race about. It's a far distance. How fast?
I do also love Pete saying like, yeah, well, my dad told me this thing one time, and he's right about how long erosion takes.
I mean, it wasn't close to the beach, is the point. Like,
Sure.
it would have taken that long to erode
With
that much
rising
of
sea levels,
Prince Edward
Peter,
Island.
with climate change, have you even considered this? Prince Edward Island's going to be underwater.
It was
Friggin' 100
it was
years.
like 100-foot cliff at the edge of the lawn.
You know what?
The
I
Atlantic's
think
not going up that much.
we're gonna have to cut off Peter's patriarch's head. I think, just like in the episode.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
you both know what he looks like, so he's
Clearly
easy to
been
kill.
infected.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't know which one of us is which, so we can speak up on it.
I think he's going to be just like A2 Ethan, and Jamie's just sitting over the rock about to hit him in the head. He's like, yeah, for the Republic.
I think that would cost you. Lore boys.
Lore boys.
Whoa, boys.
Killing
Kill my
Pete's
dad.
dad.
Yay, jinx.